Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant. Now I want you to think back to the mid-1990s, when you were still pulling dimes from your pocket to pay for a newspaper or a cup of coffee, when these little 10-cent pieces passed through your hands thousands of times without a second glance. The 1995 Roosevelt dime was one of those coins you probably handled repeatedly, maybe even gave to your grandchildren to buy candy at the corner store, and at the time it was worth exactly what it said on the reverse, 10 cents, no more, no less. But here's where the story takes a remarkable turn that every serious collector needs to understand. At a heritage auction sale, documented examples of this particular date and mint mark combination have brought staggering sums that would have seemed impossible when the coin first left the Denver Mint, with verified sales reaching values that have redefined what collectors thought possible for modern Roosevelt dimes. The record for this variety stands at amounts that have genuinely stunned the numismatic community, and what makes this so compelling is that these coins were produced in massive quantities, struck by the hundreds of millions at the Denver facility in 1995, which means the valuable versions are hiding in plain sight among countless common pieces that remain worth face value today. Understanding what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary requires diving deep into the technical specifics that professional graders at PCGS and NGC examine under magnification, because the difference between a 10-cent piece and a serious numismatic treasure often comes down to microscopic details that most people never notice. The Denver Mint produced these dimes using standard copper nickel-clad planchets, the same composition that had been in use since 1965 when silver was removed from circulating coinage, and the obverse featured the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt designed by John R. Sinek that had been in production since 1946. What makes certain 1995 D specimens so extraordinarily valuable relates to specific die characteristics and striking anomalies that occurred during production, variations that were not immediately recognized by the collecting community but have since been documented through careful research and professional certification. If you're finding this information valuable, I'd appreciate your subscription to The Coin Merchant so we can continue bringing you thoroughly researched content that respects your intelligence and experience as a collector. The technical details get really interesting when we examine the specific die markers that distinguish premium specimens, including double die varieties and repunched mint marks that occurred when the Denver Mint used dies that had been improperly prepared or had developed distinctive characteristics during their service life. Professional numismatists look for several key indicators when evaluating these coins, starting with the mint mark placement and examining for any evidence of die doubling that might indicate a valuable variety, and the grading population data from PCGS reveals that truly exceptional specimens in grades like MS-67 and above are extraordinarily scarce, which explains why collectors compete so aggressively when these coins appear at major auction houses. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating about market evolution, because prices for top-grade 1995 D Roosevelt dimes have appreciated steadily as more collectors have become aware of the condition rarity factors at play, and this isn't speculative hype but rather established market dynamics backed by actual sales data from Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections. Understanding the minting process explains why this matters so much to serious collectors, because the Denver Mint in 1995 was operating under tremendous production pressure, striking dimes at maximum capacity to meet commercial demand, and this high-speed production environment created opportunities for die wear, die cracks, and other characteristics that knowledgeable collectors now prize. The next coin we're examining has a documented auction history that tells a remarkable story about market evolution and how collector awareness can transform the value of seemingly common pieces. When you examine a 1995 D Roosevelt dime for potential value, you need to understand the full grading spectrum and what realistic expectations should be, because while common circulated examples remain worth face value, specimens that have been preserved in pristine condition since minting can command significant premiums, and the jump in value between grades becomes exponential rather than linear as you approach the top of the population reports. Authentication becomes critical when dealing with potentially valuable modern coins, because the market has seen its share of altered pieces and counterfeits attempting to capitalize on the legitimate values that documented specimens have achieved, and this is where working with established grading services like PCGS, NGC, and ANACS becomes essential for protecting your investment and ensuring that any premium you pay is for a genuine, properly attributed specimen. The grading populations tell an important story about true scarcity, because while millions of 1995 D dimes were produced, the number that survive in gem uncirculated condition with full strikes, clean surfaces, and original mint luster is vanishingly small, and this condition rarity is what drives the market for serious registry set collectors who compete to build the finest possible collections. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information that goes beyond surface-level hype. Here's where the technical details get really interesting for those of you who have been collecting for decades and remember when these coins were brand new, because the strike quality on 1995 D dimes varied considerably depending on which press was used and the condition of the dies at the time of striking, and specimens that show sharp detail on Roosevelt's hair, the torch flames, and the olive branch represent the pinnacle of what the Denver Mint was capable of producing during that era. The historical context behind this coin adds another layer of appreciation for those of us who lived through the period, because 1995 was a time of economic transition in America, when the post-Cold War prosperity was taking shape and the everyday transactions that passed these dimes through countless hands represented a different pace of life than what we experience today with digital payments and contactless transactions. Stay with me because the next coin involves a minting error with fascinating technical characteristics that even experienced graders find remarkable when they encounter genuine specimens. What separates valuable from common versions often comes down to details most people overlook, including the presence of full bands on the torch, which is a designation that NGC and PCGS award to Roosevelt Dimes that show complete horizontal lines on the torch on the reverse, and this feature requires a particularly sharp strike that was not consistently achieved during high-speed production runs at Denver. The market demand trends backed by actual data show that collectors have become increasingly sophisticated in their pursuit of registry-quality specimens, and this competition has driven prices upward for coins that achieve the highest grades, with documented sales showing consistent appreciation over time frames that validate the serious financial opportunity these coins represent for knowledgeable collectors. Research methods for determining if coins in your collection warrant professional evaluation include careful examination under proper lighting, comparison against known die varieties documented in reference works, and understanding the difference between post-mint damage and actual striking errors that occurred at the mint during production, because this distinction is crucial for making informed decisions about whether submission for grading is justified given the costs involved. The coin we're covering next has grading population numbers that explain its current strong market demand among serious collectors who understand condition rarity. Current availability versus collector demand creates a market dynamic that favors those who possess genuinely superior specimens, because while 1995 D dimes are readily available in circulated condition and even in lower mint state grades, the truly exceptional pieces that qualify for the highest designations are tightly held in advanced collections and rarely appear on the market, which means when they do surface at auction, competitive bidding often pushes prices to levels that surprise even seasoned market observers. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support as we continue exploring the fascinating world of numismatic treasures. The technical die characteristics that distinguish common coins from valuable varieties include examination of the mint mark for any evidence of repunching or doubling, analysis of the obverse and reverse devices for signs of die deterioration that might create collectible varieties, and careful study of the rim and edge for any anomalies that occurred during the striking process, all of which require knowledge and patience that experienced collectors have developed over years of careful study. Professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANACS provide certification benefits that go beyond simple grading, because their attribution services can identify specific die varieties that carry significant premiums, and their encapsulation protects specimens from environmental damage while providing a tamper-evident guarantee of authenticity that gives buyers confidence in the marketplace. Condition factors that create dramatic value differences across the grading spectrum include surface preservation, strike sharpness, luster quality, and the presence or absence of contact marks that might have occurred during minting, handling, or storage, and understanding these factors allows collectors to make informed decisions about which coins merit the investment of professional grading fees. The documented finds by ordinary collectors remind us all that valuable specimens can still be discovered in inherited collections, old rolls of coins purchased from banks decades ago, and even in pocket change for those who remain vigilant, and this possibility of discovery is part of what makes numismatics such a rewarding pursuit for those of us who appreciate the combination of history, artistry, and potential financial reward. What's Ahead involves a discovery story that changed how collectors view an entire series and demonstrates why continued research and attention to detail pay dividends in this hobby. The legacy and inheritance angles resonate deeply with collectors in our demographic who may have received coins from parents or grandparents, because what was saved as a casual memento decades ago might now represent significant market value that warrants careful preservation and professional evaluation rather than being spent or discarded as pocket change. The 1995 Roosevelt Dimes serves as an excellent case study in how modern coin collecting has evolved from a casual hobby to a serious pursuit requiring technical knowledge, access to reliable information, and relationships with reputable dealers and grading services, and this evolution reflects the broader maturation of the numismatic marketplace over the past several decades. Supporting this channel with a subscription helps us keep delivering the detailed research you deserve, and I'm grateful for every viewer who chooses to join us in this journey of discovery. The historical significance of these pieces extends beyond their monetary value to encompass the story of American coinage in the late 20th century, when the mint was transitioning to more automated production methods while still maintaining the artistic standards established by earlier generations of engravers and mint officials, and the 1995 dime represents a tangible connection to that period of numismatic history. If you value accurate, well-researched coin information, subscribing to the Coin Merchant ensures you won't miss future discoveries we uncover through our ongoing research and market analysis. The market analysis for this coin reveals current demand factors that include registry set competition, type set completion efforts, and the broader interest in modern coin varieties that has grown substantially as the generation that grew up with these coins has reached collecting age and seeks to acquire specimens that connect to their personal history. The price trends show consistent strength for top-graded examples, with documented sales establishing reliable benchmarks that help collectors understand what constitutes fair market value, and this transparency benefits everyone in the hobby by reducing the information asymmetry that can lead to poor purchasing decisions. The collector competition levels for specific grades reflect the finite nature of the finest known specimens, and this competition is likely to intensify as more collectors enter the market and existing collectors upgrade their holdings, which suggests that those who acquire superior examples now may benefit from continued appreciation as supply remains constrained while demand grows. The authentication details that professionals use include microscopic examination of the surfaces for evidence of cleaning, alteration, or artificial toning that might disqualify a coin from premium grading, and these skills take years to develop but are essential for anyone seeking to build a collection of genuine, marketable specimens. The comparative context shows how this coin fits within the broader Roosevelt Dimes series, which has been collected by date and mint mark since its inception in 1946, and the 1995 represents a modern issue that has developed numismatic significance beyond its face value due to the factors we have discussed regarding condition rarity and specific variety attributions. The discovery accounts from verified finds remind us that extraordinary specimens can emerge from the most unexpected sources, including estate sales, bank rolls purchased years ago and forgotten in drawers, and collections assembled by collectors who may not have realized the potential value of certain pieces they acquired for nominal amounts. The professional guidance regarding when to seek expert authentication centers on any coin that appears to have characteristics of a known valuable variety, shows exceptional condition that might qualify for high-grade certification, or has been offered at a price that suggests it may be more valuable than a common specimen. And in these situations the cost of professional opinion is almost always justified by the potential return. The technical knowledge that reveals value includes understanding die-pair relationships, mint mark styles used at Denver during different periods, and the specific characteristics that major grading services recognize when attributing premium specimens, and this knowledge is accumulated through years of study, reference work consultation, and hands-on examination of large numbers of coins. The investment potential of these coins should be viewed through a lens of realistic expectations rather than lottery fantasies, because while extraordinary values are documented, they apply to a tiny fraction of existing specimens, and the path to building valuable collections lies in education, careful acquisition, and patience rather than hoping for miraculous discoveries. The satisfaction that comes from comprehensive coverage of a topic like the 1995 Roosevelt Dime reflects the respect we have for viewers who have spent decades in this hobby and deserve information that acknowledges their experience while offering new insights that even seasoned collectors might not have encountered. And this approach to content creation is what distinguishes the coin merchant from channels that rely on sensationalism rather than substance. The final analysis must emphasize that while the 1995 Roosevelt Dime has achieved remarkable documented values at auction, these values apply to specific specimens with verified characteristics and grading, and the vast majority of examples encountered in circulation or even in casual collections will remain worth face value or modest premiums, which is why education and proper authentication remain the cornerstones of successful numismatic collecting. Share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content, and subscribe to The Coin Merchant for continued quality research that respects your intelligence and honors the rich tradition of American numismatics that we all share as custodians of these remarkable pieces of history. Next, 1994 Roosevelt Dime. Think back to 1994, when you might have been in your prime earning years, building your career, raising your family, and these dimes were passing through your hands daily as you paid for lunch at the diner, tipped the paperboy, or filled the parking meter outside your office. The 1994 Roosevelt Dime was absolutely ordinary then, just another 10-cent piece from the Denver Mint, struck by the hundreds of millions to keep commerce flowing across America during a period of economic recovery and technological transition that many of us lived through and remember vividly. But what has emerged in the decades since is a remarkable story of numismatic evolution that demonstrates why experienced collectors never dismiss modern coins as inherently common or without potential for extraordinary value, because documented sales through major auction houses have reached amounts that would have seemed inconceivable when these coins were fresh from the mint. At a heritage auction sale, PCGS has certified examples that sold for as much as figures that have genuinely reshaped market perceptions about what modern Roosevelt dimes can command when they possess the right combination of rarity, condition, and recognized variety characteristics that separate them from the countless common pieces still circulating today. The Denver Mint in 1994 was operating at full capacity, producing dimes with the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that had become familiar since the silver era ended in 1965, and the sheer volume of production means that most 1994 dimes you encounter will be worth exactly face value, perhaps a small premium if uncirculated, but nothing approaching the extraordinary figures that have been documented for exceptional specimens. What creates this dramatic value disparity requires understanding the technical nuances that professional graders at PCGS and NGC examine with meticulous care, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary often hinges on factors invisible to the naked eye and undetectable without proper magnification, lighting, and the trained expertise that comes from examining thousands of specimens. If you're finding this information valuable, I'd appreciate your subscription to The Coin Merchant so we can continue bringing you thoroughly researched content that honors your decades of collecting experience and respects the intelligence you bring to this hobby. The technical details get really interesting when we examine the specific production circumstances at the Denver Mint during 1994, because this was a period of significant transition in minting technology, with the Mint gradually implementing more automated quality control systems while still relying on traditional die preparation methods that created opportunities for the kinds of varieties and errors that knowledgeable collectors now actively seek. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating about how market awareness develops over time, because many of the most valuable 1994D specimens were not recognized as extraordinary when first struck, passing through countless hands as ordinary 10-cent pieces before eventually being identified, authenticated, and certified by the major grading services that provide the market confidence necessary for premium pricing. Understanding the minting process explains why certain 1994D dimes developed characteristics that make them genuinely scarce and desirable, including die deterioration doubling, repunched mint marks, and other anomalies that occurred during high-speed production runs where dies were used beyond their optimal service life to maximize output and minimize production costs. The next coin we're examining involves a minting error with fascinating technical characteristics that even experienced graders find remarkable when they encounter genuine specimens in the certification room. When you examine a 1994D Roosevelt dime for potential value, you need to start with realistic expectations based on the grading population data that shows how few specimens survive in the top grades that command serious premiums, because while millions were produced, the number that escaped bag marks, contact with other coins, and environmental damage to achieve grades of MS67 and above is extraordinarily small, creating genuine condition rarity that drives registry set competition. The grading populations tell an important story about true scarcity that goes beyond the raw mintage figures, because survival rates for pristine modern coins are often much lower than collectors assume, with many pieces being spent, lost, or damaged before they ever reach the hands of numismatists who would preserve them properly, and this attrition creates opportunities for those who understand what to look for. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information that goes beyond surface-level hype to deliver genuine expertise. Here's where the technical details get really interesting for those of you who remember handling these coins when they were new, because the strike quality on 1994D dimes varied considerably depending on die state, press pressure, and planchet preparation, and specimens that show full torch bands, sharp hair detail on Roosevelt's portrait, and crisp lettering represent the pinnacle of what was achievable and command corresponding premiums when certified by PCGS or NGC. The historical context enriches our appreciation of these pieces, because 1994 was a year when many of us were witnessing the early stages of the Internet revolution, watching technology transform our workplaces and homes, while these humble dimes continued their daily circulation, connecting us to a tangible past that now seems increasingly precious as digital transactions replace physical currency. Stay with me because the next coin we're covering has grading population numbers that explain its current strong market demand among serious collectors who understand condition rarity and the competitive dynamics of registry set collecting. What separates valuable from common versions often comes down to details most people overlook, including the subtle differences in mint mark placement and style that can indicate different die pairs, the presence or absence of die cracks that create collectible varieties, and the surface quality that distinguishes a coin stored properly since minting from one that has been handled carelessly or exposed to damaging environments. The market demand trends backed by actual data from Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections show that prices for top-grade 1994D Roosevelt dimes have appreciated steadily as collector sophistication has increased and more numismatists have recognized that modern coins in exceptional condition represent genuine scarcity worthy of serious investment consideration. Research methods for determining if coins in your collection warrant professional evaluation include careful comparison against known variety references, examination under multiple light sources to detect surface problems invisible to casual inspection, and honest assessment of whether a specimen genuinely possesses the quality to justify grading fees that can exceed the value of common pieces. The authentication details that professionals use when evaluating potentially valuable 1994D specimens include microscopic examination for evidence of cleaning, whizzing, or other post-mint alteration that would disqualify a coin from premium grading. And these skills represent years of accumulated expertise that protect the market from fraudulent pieces and help maintain confidence among serious collectors. The coin we're examining next has a documented auction history that tells a remarkable story about market evolution and how collector awareness can transform the value of seemingly common modern pieces. Current availability versus collector demand creates a compelling market dynamic for the 1994 Roosevelt Dime, because while circulated examples and even lower mint state pieces remain readily accessible, the truly exceptional specimens that qualify for the highest grades and special designations like full bands are tightly held in advanced collections and appear at auction only rarely, generating competitive bidding when they do surface. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support as we continue exploring these fascinating numismatic treasures together. The technical die characteristics that distinguish common coins from valuable varieties include careful study of the Denver mint mark for evidence of repunching or doubling that occurred during die preparation, analysis of the obverse and reverse devices for signs of die deterioration that creates collectible varieties recognized by major grading services, and examination of the rim and edge for any anomalies that might indicate striking errors or planchet problems. Professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANACS provide certification benefits that extend beyond simple numerical grading to include variety attribution, which can dramatically impact value when a recognized die variety is identified and properly documented on the certification label, giving buyers and sellers confidence in the transaction. Condition factors that create dramatic value differences across the grading spectrum include surface preservation free from contact marks and hairlines, original mint luster that has not been diminished by environmental exposure or improper storage, strike sharpness that shows full detail in all design elements, an eye appeal that makes a coin stand out even among other high-grade specimens, and understanding these factors allows collectors to make informed acquisition decisions. The discovery accounts from verified finds remind us that extraordinary specimens can emerge from the most unexpected sources, including collections assembled decades ago by collectors who may not have realized the potential value of certain pieces, estate sales where coins have been stored in original mint packaging or rolls since the 1990s, and even occasional finds in circulation for those who remain vigilant and knowledgeable about what to look for. What's Ahead involves a discovery story that changed how collectors view an entire series and demonstrates why continued attention to detail and research pays dividends in this rewarding hobby. The legacy and inheritance angles resonate deeply with our demographic, because many of us may have coins from this era that were saved casually by family members, placed in jars or drawers and forgotten, and what was once considered ordinary pocket change may now represent significant market value that warrants careful preservation and professional evaluation rather than being spent or discarded. The 1994 Roosevelt Dime exemplifies how modern coin collecting has evolved from a casual pastime to a technically demanding pursuit requiring deep knowledge of die varieties, grading standards, and market dynamics, and this evolution reflects the broader maturation of numismatics as both a hobby and a legitimate alternative investment category for those who understand the risks and opportunities. Supporting this channel with a subscription helps us keep delivering the detailed research you deserve, and I'm grateful for every viewer who chooses to join us in this journey of numismatic discovery. The historical significance of these pieces extends beyond their monetary value to encompass the tangible connection they provide to a period of American history that many of us remember personally, when these dimes were part of daily transactions that now seem almost quaint in our digital age, and this nostalgic dimension adds emotional value that complements the financial considerations for many collectors. If you value accurate, well-researched coin information, subscribing to the Coin Merchant ensures you won't miss future discoveries we uncover through our ongoing research and market analysis. The market analysis for this coin reveals current demand factors that include the growing recognition of condition rarity in modern issues, registry-set competition among advanced collectors seeking the finest known specimens, and the broader interest in Roosevelt Dime varieties that has intensified as the series has become more comprehensively studied and documented by researchers and grading services. The price trends show consistent strength for top-graded examples with documented sales establishing reliable benchmarks, and this price stability reflects genuine collector demand rather than speculative bubble dynamics, which is reassuring for those considering these coins as part of a diversified collecting strategy or alternative investment portfolio. The collector competition levels for specific grades reflect the finite supply of truly exceptional specimens, and this competition is likely to continue as more collectors enter the market and existing collectors upgrade their holdings, suggesting that those who acquire superior examples now may benefit from continued appreciation as the supply-demand imbalance persists. The authentication details that professionals use include sophisticated examination for artificial toning created to deceive buyers, evidence of tooling or alteration of mint marks to simulate valuable varieties, and analysis of surface textures to detect cleaning or other damage that would prevent a coin from achieving premium grades, and these protective measures are essential for maintaining market integrity. The comparative context shows how the 1994 D fits within the broader Roosevelt Dimes series, which spans from 1946 to the present and includes silver issues, clad coinage, and special mint sets. And understanding this context helps collectors appreciate how individual dates and mint marks contribute to the overall historical and numismatic narrative of one of America's longest-running coin series. The professional guidance regarding when to seek expert authentication centers on any coin that shows potential variety characteristics appears to be an exceptional condition that might qualify for high-grade certification, or has been offered at a price suggesting it may be more valuable than a common specimen. And in these situations, the cost of professional evaluation is almost always justified by the potential return on a properly attributed and graded coin. The technical knowledge that reveals value includes understanding the specific die markers that distinguish recognized varieties, the mint mark styles and placements used at Denver during different periods, and the characteristics that major grading services consider when awarding designations like full bands that carry significant premiums in the marketplace. And this knowledge is accumulated through years of dedicated study and hands-on experience. The investment potential should be viewed with financial pragmatism rather than lottery fantasies, because while documented auction results show extraordinary values for exceptional specimens, these apply to a tiny fraction of existing pieces, and the path to building valuable collections lies in education, careful acquisition at fair prices, and patience rather than hoping for miraculous discoveries that defy probability. The satisfaction that comes from comprehensive coverage reflects our respect for viewers who have spent decades in this hobby and deserve information that acknowledges their experience while offering new insights that even seasoned collectors might not have encountered, and this substantive approach is what distinguishes the coin merchant from channels that rely on sensationalism rather than genuine expertise. The final analysis must emphasize that while the 1994 D Roosevelt Dime has achieved remarkable documented values at auction, these values apply to specific specimens with verified characteristics and professional grading, and the vast majority of examples encountered will remain worth face value or modest premiums, which is why education, proper authentication, and realistic expectations remain the cornerstones of successful numismatic collecting. Share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content, and subscribe to The Coin Merchant for continued quality research that respects your intelligence and honors the rich tradition of American numismatics that we all share as custodians of these remarkable pieces of history. Next, 1969 D Roosevelt Dime. I want you to transport yourself back to 1969, when you were likely in your 20s or 30s, building your life in a very different America, when these dimes were fresh from the Denver Mint and still contained the silver that gave them intrinsic value beyond their face denomination, when you could pull one from your pocket and feel the weight of genuine precious metal that connected you to centuries of monetary tradition. The 1969 D Roosevelt Dime represents a pivotal moment in American numismatic history, struck during the final years before the Coinage Act of 1965 fully transformed circulating coinage into the clad composition we know today. And this transitional context gives the coin historical resonance that younger collectors simply cannot appreciate in the same way that those of us who lived through this period can understand intuitively. At a heritage auction sale in recent years, this particular date and mint mark combination has brought documented values that have stunned even seasoned market observers, with PCGS certified examples selling for amounts that seem almost impossible for a coin that was once so common in everyday commerce. And the record for this variety stands at figures that have genuinely redefined what serious collectors are willing to pay for exceptional specimens from this era. The Denver Mint in 1969 was still adapting to the new clad coinage system that had been implemented 4 years earlier, and this period of technological adjustment created opportunities for minting anomalies that knowledgeable collectors have since identified, documented, and pursued with the kind of determination that only comes from genuine passion for the technical aspects of numismatics. What makes certain 1969 D specimens extraordinarily valuable relates to specific die characteristics, striking variations, and condition factors that combine to create genuine scarcity in a series that was produced in massive quantities, and understanding these factors requires the kind of deep technical knowledge that separates serious collectors from casual accumulators. If you're finding this information valuable, I'd appreciate your subscription to the Coin Merchant so we can continue bringing you thoroughly researched content that respects your intelligence and honors the decades of experience you bring to this fascinating hobby. The technical details get really interesting when we examine the specific production circumstances at the Denver Mint during 1969, because this was a year when the Mint was still refining its clad coinage production processes, working with copper-nickel clad planchets that were fundamentally different from the silver composition that had been used since the Roosevelt Dimes introduction in 1946, and this transition period created unique technical challenges that manifested in collectible varieties. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating about how collector preferences evolve over decades, because the 1969 D Roosevelt dime was not particularly sought after when new, with most collectors focusing on earlier silver issues or key dates from the 1940s and 1950s. But as the generation that grew up with these coins matured into serious collectors and as condition rarity became better understood, market values for exceptional specimens have appreciated dramatically based on documented sales at major auction houses. Understanding the minting process explains why this matters so much to experienced collectors who remember when these coins circulated as ordinary pocket change, because the Denver Mint in 1969 was using dies that had been prepared with techniques that sometimes resulted in double die varieties, repunchment marks, and other anomalies that were not immediately recognized but have since become prized by specialists who study the Roosevelt Dimes series with scholarly intensity. This is the final coin in our examination, and I want to give it the comprehensive treatment it deserves because the 1969 D represents something special for collectors in our demographic who actually handled these coins when they were new, who remember the feel of clad coinage replacing silver in their pockets, and who can appreciate the historical significance of a transitional period in American monetary history. The grading populations tell an important story about true scarcity that goes far beyond raw mintage figures, because while the Denver Mint produced millions of 1969 D dimes, the number that survive today in gem uncirculated condition with original mint luster, full strikes, and clean surfaces is remarkably small, and this condition rarity is compounded by the fact that many pieces from this era were heavily circulated before collectors recognized their potential numismatic value. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information that acknowledges their experience and delivers genuine expertise without condescension. Here's where the technical details get really interesting for those of you who have been collecting since the 1960s or 1970s, because the strike quality on 1969 D dimes varied considerably based on die state and press conditions, and specimens that show full torch bands, sharp detail in Roosevelt's hair and the olive branch, and crisp, well-formed lettering represent the best of what Denver was capable of producing during this transitional period and command substantial premiums when properly certified by PCGS or NGC. The historical context enriches our appreciation in ways that younger collectors cannot fully replicate, because 1969 was a year of tremendous social and cultural change in America, when many of us were establishing our careers, raising young families, or serving our country, and these dimes were part of the everyday economic fabric of our lives, passing through our hands as we paid for gasoline that cost a fraction of today's prices, bought newspapers that reported on moon landings and political upheavals, and engaged in the countless transactions that defined daily existence. The authentication details that professionals use when evaluating potentially valuable 1969D specimens include careful examination for evidence of cleaning that was common in the 1970s and 1980s when collectors did not fully understand its damaging effects, detection of artificial toning created to simulate the natural patina that develops over decades, and analysis of surface textures to identify whizzing or other destructive practices that were unfortunately common before certification became standard in the numismatic marketplace. What separates valuable from common versions often comes down to details that require both knowledge and patience to identify, including the specific die markers that distinguish recognized double die varieties, the mint mark characteristics that indicate different die pairs or repunching events, and the surface quality that separates a coin carefully preserved since 1969 from one that has suffered decades of improper storage or handling. The market demand trends backed by actual data from Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections demonstrate that prices for top-grade 1969D Roosevelt Dimes have shown remarkable consistency and strength over extended time frames, reflecting genuine collector demand rather than speculative bubbles. And this stability is reassuring for those considering these coins as part of a serious collection or alternative investment strategy. Research methods for determining if coins in your collection warrant professional evaluation include honest assessment of condition under proper lighting, comparison against high-resolution images of certified specimens in various grades, consultation of reference works that document known varieties for this date and mint mark, and realistic understanding of grading fees relative to potential value. Because not every 1969D dime justifies certification, but the exceptional ones certainly do. The technical die characteristics that distinguish common coins from valuable varieties include microscopic examination of the Denver mint mark for evidence of repunching that occurred during die preparation, analysis of the obverse portrait for signs of hub doubling that creates collectible double die varieties, and careful study of the reverse torch and branches for die cracks, chips, or other deterioration markers that occurred as dies wore during high-speed production runs. Professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANACS provide certification benefits that are particularly valuable for coins from this era, because their encapsulation protects specimens from further environmental damage while providing tamper-evident guarantees of authenticity and condition that facilitate confident transactions between collectors and dealers who may not have the opportunity to examine coins in person before purchase. Condition factors that create dramatic value differences across the grading spectrum include the presence of full bands on the torch, which requires an exceptionally sharp strike that was not consistently achieved during the transitional period of clad coinage production, original mint luster that has survived decades without dulling or discoloration, and surface preservation free from the contact marks and abrasions that commonly occurred during mint handling and bag storage in the 1960s. The discovery accounts from verified finds remind us that extraordinary specimens from this era can still emerge from inherited collections, old rolls purchased from banks in the late 1960s and carefully stored, and estate sales where original mint sets or accumulations have been preserved in remarkable condition through decades of benign neglect. And these discoveries represent some of the most exciting moments in modern numismatics for those who appreciate the thrill of the hunt. The legacy and inheritance angles resonate with particular power for our demographic, because many of us may have coins from 1969 that were saved by parents, grandparents, or even by our younger selves without any thought of future value, and what was once casually accumulated may now represent significant market worth that warrants careful preservation, proper documentation, and professional evaluation rather than being treated as ordinary pocket change. The 1969D Roosevelt Dime serves as a powerful reminder that numismatic value often emerges from the intersection of historical significance, technical rarity, and condition preservation, and that coins which seemed ordinary when new can develop extraordinary value as collector understanding deepens, market dynamics evolve, and the supply of exceptional specimens naturally diminishes through circulation, loss, and destruction over the decades. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support as we conclude this examination with the comprehensive analysis that this remarkable coin deserves. The historical significance of these pieces extends beyond monetary value to encompass the tangible connection they provide to a transformative period in American history, when the nation was grappling with monetary policy changes that affected every citizen, when the transition from silver to clad coinage represented broader economic shifts that many of us experienced firsthand, and when these humble dimes served as daily reminders of the precious metal tradition that had defined American coinage for generations. If you value accurate, well-researched coin information, subscribing to the Coin Merchant ensures you won't miss future discoveries we uncover through our ongoing research and market analysis, and I want to express my genuine gratitude for your attention and engagement throughout this detailed examination. The market analysis for this coin reveals current demand factors that include the maturation of collectors who grew up with clad coinage and now seek the finest specimens from their youth, registry-set competition that drives prices for top-graded examples across all dates in the Roosevelt Dimes series, and the broader recognition that transitional-era coins like the 1969D possess historical significance that complements their numismatic appeal. The price trends show consistent strength backed by documented sales at major auction houses, with values appreciating steadily as the supply of gem specimens continues to dwindle and as new collectors enter the market seeking tangible connections to the monetary history they experienced personally. And this dual dynamic of diminishing supply and growing demand creates favorable conditions for continued market strength. The collector competition levels for specific grades reflect the genuine scarcity of truly exceptional 1969D specimens, and this competition is likely to intensify as more collectors from our demographic seek to acquire the coins they remember from their youth and as younger collectors recognize the historical and technical significance of this transitional period in American numismatics. The comparative context shows how the 1969D fits within the broader Roosevelt Dimes series, bridging the gap between the silver issues that preceded it and the modern clad coinage that followed, and understanding this position helps collectors appreciate how individual dates contribute to the complete narrative of a series that has spanned from the post-World War II era to the present day, connecting multiple generations of American collectors through shared interest in these remarkable pieces. The professional guidance regarding when to seek expert authentication centers on any 1969D dime that appears to be in exceptional condition, shows potential variety characteristics, or has been held in family collections for decades without proper evaluation, and given the documented values that certified specimens have achieved, the cost of professional grading and attribution is almost always justified when genuine quality or rarity is present. The technical knowledge that reveals value includes understanding the specific die relationships used at Denver in 1969, the mint mark styles and placements that distinguish different production runs, and the characteristics that major grading services consider when evaluating specimens from this transitional period, and this knowledge is accumulated through years of dedicated study, reference work consultation, and the kind of hands-on experience that develops only through examining thousands of specimens. The investment potential should be approached with the financial pragmatism that characterizes experienced collectors, because while documented auction results show extraordinary values for exceptional specimens, these apply to a small fraction of existing pieces, and successful collecting requires education, patience, careful acquisition at fair market prices, and realistic expectations rather than hopes for miraculous discoveries that defy the laws of probability and market dynamics. The satisfaction that comes from comprehensive coverage reflects our deep respect for viewers who have spent decades in this hobby and who deserve information that acknowledges their experience while offering new insights that even the most seasoned collectors might not have encountered in their previous research, and this commitment to substance over sensationalism is the founding principle of the Coin Merchant. I want to close this examination with a dignified and appreciative message to all of you who have stayed with us through this detailed analysis, because you represent the kind of serious, knowledgeable collectors who make numismatics such a rewarding field, and your dedication to learning, research, and careful collecting sets the standard for what this hobby can and should be. I invite you to subscribe to the Coin Merchant if you have not already done so, to share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content that respects their intelligence, and to examine your personal collections carefully for the kinds of specimens we have discussed, because the next great discovery might be sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old album that has been overlooked for decades. I welcome your discoveries and experiences in the comments, because the collective knowledge of our community is one of our greatest strengths, and I am committed to continuing the quality research and detailed analysis that you deserve as viewers who have demonstrated your appreciation for serious numismatic content. The value of numismatic knowledge cannot be overstated, because in a field where authenticity, condition, and proper attribution determine value, education is your most important tool and your best protection against the misinformation, counterfeits, and overgraded pieces that unfortunately circulate in the marketplace. And I am honored to contribute to your continuing education as a fellow collector and researcher. Thank you for your attention, your engagement, and your commitment to the rich tradition of American numismatics that we all share as custodians of these remarkable pieces of history, and I look forward to continuing our journey of discovery together in future examinations of the coins that connect us to our past, enrich our present, and preserve our heritage for future generations of collectors.